Hello, today we are here to discuss Expedition Northwest Passage. This is an older game.
Yep.
And so it's one but it's new to me because I just got it for Christmas. And it's one that's been on my Board Game Geek wish list for quite a while, and Miranda went out and tracked it down.
Yep.
It was actually unpunched. It was open,
but unpunched, yeah.
So, well, before we get into it, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell.
Why would they do that, Randy?
Well, assuming they hadn't already done that before, because we don't want them to do it because that would unsubscribe.
Right.
But yeah, if you haven't, you can follow along as we go through all of our exploits and hijinks in the world of gaming.
And there's going to be more.
Yes, so. Lots and lots more.
Lots more. So.
All right, Rob.
All right, so Expedition Northwest Passage, just 2010 release. Rank overall is 1,070, rated at 7.0. It plays 1 to 4. Now it says it plays in 60 minutes. Maybe if we knew the rules better, it could play that. But
maybe if we didn't make some poor decisions, which we'll get into.
We'll get into that, but it definitely, for our first play, was way more than 60 minutes. It says ages 14 and up. I don't know. I think somebody younger than 14.
Well, I mean, it's got some iconography. The gameplay itself is pretty simple, but the iconography is a little tricky.
I think 14 up's a little high.
That seems to be the generic lately. We've got a lot of 14 ups where it doesn't feel like it should be.
So the designer is Yves Torigny, art by Stéphane Poinceau and Yves Torigny, published by Matagot, and I believe it was brought to the United States by Asmodee. Now, this is an out-of-print game. Now, I've seen prices go all over the place. I saw eBay have a copy for $99, but I also saw a copy for $200. I saw one on Amazon for $175. Geek Market had the cheapest at $75.
Oh, okay. Well, let's talk about what you get in the box. So you get a lot of little cardboard chits. These are very reminiscent of like the GMT.
Yeah, kind of.
Chits.
Except for less information.
Yeah, little squares, little circles. You get some cardboard tiles. They do have a linen finish, but they're very thin. They're wafer thin.
What? Wafer.
You have some custom-shaped meeples. The little men.
Yeah, they're a little different, but they're all shaped the same, just different colors.
And the standard black, gray, white, and brown of Azul for some reason. And then what is kind of cool is you get a sled and a boat.
Yeah, those look really good.
But they added a little brown.
Yeah, a little brown. It just really makes it pop.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool. And then you've got a little wooden
dial for the sun or
that
something.
I absolutely hate in this game, which we'll get into again. Player mats are they're very, again, they're very thick cardstock, but they're not, they're just...
It's not cardboard, it's just thick cardstock.
The board's nice, and it's got a linen finish.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm probably at a 6. I think is the max I'll go, because I think the board's good, and I think the two-tone wooden ships and sleds or sheds, as Miranda called them, all.
I honestly think that the boat in the shed is the only I think is the nicest component of the game. I cannot give it more than a 5.5. Yeah. So it's a little bit better in Catan.
Okay. So talking about the theme of this game has integrated the theme into this.
I agree.
The hilt.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
You're on an expedition, and they got the history here. It's the Franklin expedition.
Yeah, you start in Greenland.
Yes. And you're supposedly going in to basically track the lost expedition that went previous to you.
Into the Northwest Passage.
And trying to map out the Northwest Passage.
Right.
So I actually like the fact, and one of the things you can find along the way is evidence of the previous expedition. I found a lot of that, and I tried to reenact the previous expedition.
He said he found the toilet paper.
Yeah. What was kind of funny is that it says on here that the previous expedition, they gave them 2 heavy ships, the HMS Terror and the HMS Erebus. I'm going to have to look up the history on this, because it sounds like it's probably the names of these ships.
Probably.
It seems like a horrible naming for the ships.
Terror.
But to say that they gave them heavy ships was kind of funny, because as it turns out, no one really knows what happened to them in this. So
they're just gone. You're
going in to look for them. This played out that way, very much so. But you're going in building tiles onto a board, and they have waterways and landways, but then this dreaded token.
The sun, it's like the sun token.
Yeah, it basically heats or freezes areas. So the certain areas become frozen, your boat can't pass, and certain areas become warm, then your sled can't pass because it's trapped on the land. Very important.
Very.
So, but in essence, it's a race game because you're trying to get from the Greenland to the Northwest Passage and back before the end of the game, or else you take a severe penalty in this game.
Collecting tokens along the way.
Yeah, so you're collecting various tokens and they give you different bonuses. I thought, the theme was really well done in this game. And I did feel the urgency of that rush back a little too late, but I felt it. So, all in all, I'm going to probably thematically give this an 8.
I agree. Thematically, I think it is an 8. And there's a lot of tension in that. You can't, and the only way you can really kind of mess with your co-players is playing tiles, which we'll talk about in gameplay, that might mess them up with what they're trying to do. And so there is a little bit of a screw your neighbor element to it, but I don't know if it's as much as intentional as it is just kind of a byproduct of your actions might screw over other people's actions.
Well, that and the fact that you can choose to take multiple actions on one turn.
Yes.
Where you could, like, if there's a token you want, you could outpace them and go and snag it before they do, but it's going to cost you more to do it.
Right. But again, it's nothing brutal.
No.
Except for what Miranda did by accident. She
imprisoned me. Yeah.
But it really, I don't think the intent of the game is to be brutal in those actions.
I don't think the intent of the game is to abandon your ship either. I can tell you that.
All right. So, but yeah, I agree. I think 8's good thematically.
All right. So, Rulebook. So, the rulebook it's kind of interesting. There's 2 rulebooks in the game, different languages. So, they're all 6 pages long for each language, but it's 2-sided. So, you have English, and then on the back, you've got
French.
This, I think, is German.
Is it German?
Yeah. Die Suche nach der Franklin Expedition. Which I'm not pronouncing correctly, but it sounds German to me.
And then the others it felt like some of the names were in French. Well, some of the designers.
The other rulebook, there's 2 other languages, so it's very well likely.
So it's like an international version of the game.
Yeah, so 6 pages. It was an easy read, but it is kind of a little small print. There is no cover. It goes straight into the...
Right.
There is a cheat sheet actually printed on your board, and that's actually really helpful. Yeah. The iconography is pretty simple.
Once he read the rules, we did not have to access the book again.
Yeah, except for to check to see if when we screwed up.
Yeah. So.
Well, even the in-game scoring... Well, no, during game scoring's on the board, but the in-game scoring's not. Yeah, it is. Actually, it is. The in-game scoring's there, too.
Yeah, but it's just, really, your player board does 99% of the work.
So, all in all, I think they've done an excellent job in getting this game conveyed in 6 pages, along with having the cheat sheet. I'm probably going to give it an 8 on the rulebook.
I can agree with that, yeah.
All right.
Pretty simple.
Moving on to gameplay. So, the gameplay is basically everybody starts at Greenland with a ship. And all on your player board, you have 7 shipmates, crewmen, who are going to be in the top position on here, which means they're active. Mm-hmm. On your turn, you have a choice of multiple actions you can take, and you get to take 1 action per turn, or else you can take more actions, but you have to pay a penalty of 1 extra crewman per action. So whatever action you take, you're going to pay 1 more than it, and you can take as many as you want, so you can burn through all of your crew members in 1 turn if you'd like.
And your overall actions are pretty simple. So there's really there's no complexity to the actions.
Right. So the first action is you can draw one of the tiles that are up on the board, and there's
you got a couple types. You got the long ones, the rectangular, and then you got individual squares, but they all have different land and water sides.
Now the long ones, you will only have a choice of 4 up there. I think we piled some extra ones up there, but there's really
there's only 4 at any given time.
And then the 6 individual tiles are always the same. There's 6 piles, and that whole pile is exactly the same, and it's basically a filler tile that lets you fill in a space with either a 1, 2, 3, or 4-sided land and water.
Yeah.
So those are always available to you. Now, if you ever get in a situation where you make a full circle and there's an empty space in the middle, you drop one of those into that automatically.
So there's like a wild.
Yeah, on the back. If you can't. If that tile is, for whatever reason, missing.
Yeah, if you don't have a tile that cannot fit in there.
Yeah, then you
can make a wild.
Then you make a wild, and it's basically accessible from any side, which would have been
really useful for you.
Yes. So So on the actions, you can say we could take a tile. The other options, you can pay 2 crewmen, and you can wipe the board of tiles.
Just the 4.
The 4 rectangles, and draw 4 more from the bag, and then choose one of those.
Right.
The next one, and anytime you choose them, they go into your reserve. You don't play them; they go into your reserve.
So you have your active section and then your reserve section.
Well, no, that I'm talking about the tiles.
Oh, the tiles like go in your hand.
Yeah, basically you can play them using the
As
next
an action.
action. It takes 1 crewman, but you can play a tile to the board, but you have to play adjacent to the ship or sled, and that's important because right now all of your people are on the ship, but at any point you can decide to deploy your sled. And when you do that, that's another action you can take. It costs 1 crewman to do it. And when you do, you have to move however many crewmen you want to the sled and to be part of that crew. Now, it can be active people or it could be ones that you've already used, because anytime you use one, they go down to the bottom section and they're resting until the next time the turn.
Where you activate them all again, basically.
Yeah, at which point you would move them all back up. But you have to assign them at that point. And then in order to get them back on your ship, you have to move your ship and sled to the same location and take that action again, where you can basically reallocate your people. And you can board them all back on the ship, or you put them on the sled.
But the important thing to remember is you got to use a guy to activate it.
Yeah.
Then you move the number of guys over. So,
yes.
So that part's important to remember.
So you can move inactive people.
Yes.
Make sure. Got that clear. And then another action is you can move your ship or sled. It moves from one rectangle or tile, I should say, to an adjacent tile.
Right.
But you have to make sure you follow the proper movement. You can't move a ship through land. So it has to move from water to water. A sled has to move from land to land unless the freeze has occurred. So this marker moves around the board each round, and any tile that's above it, in the blue section above it,
is frozen.
So all the water is passable by a sled. As you go below that, water is now liquid, so your boat can move through it. So the problem is, as it gets to the bottom, everything above this bottom row is now solid.
So your boats are stuck if you're above that line.
Boat will get frozen in place. That, stopped us from moving, which wasn't a big deal, because I'm like, I kept my sled on board for that very purpose. I dragged it all the way across the board, deployed my sled, and then moved over, and I thought I was doing well. Unfortunately, I didn't think about the fact that I had to get my sled back to the ship boat before the boat became, the water became liquid again, because the sled can't move across. And I took all of my people off the boat.
So about 50% of the game,
I was
stranded over here in the Northwest Passage Island, cut off from his ship. And since all of his guys are on the sled, nobody on the boat, he couldn't activate his boat.
Exactly. So I had to just sit there and look at my boat 2 tiles away in the distance and wave to it. So that was all I could do. So don't abandon your ship completely.
Leave one guy at least.
So so the movement, and that's like integral to the game. So honestly, I felt it was more thematic, because thinking back to as being an explorer, you would think in that time, if your boat freezes over and it's in the middle of the ocean stuck, and you have a sled, I can see very well you might abandon the ship and take your sled across the land, and then the waters thaw out and you're stuck.
Yep.
And we may have lost. That may very well have been the reason the expedition that was lost.
Yeah, who knows? But I thought thematically it made perfect sense.
Yes.
That occurs.
Yep. So then the other actions you can find along the way, anytime you play a tile that has an icon on it, they have little markers to place on it.
They're always the rectangular ones, so they're not the individual squares.
So when you play it, you will put one of these tiles on, and you have actions that allow you to pick those up. There's square ones that cost you 2 crew members to pick up, and there's round ones that cost you 3 of your workers. Now, the difference is the round ones will only give you 1 point times a multiplier based on the distance they are away from Greenland. So there will only be a max of 3. But in game, the number you have of those, whoever has the most is going to get a lot of bonus points for that. Then there's like 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place rankings for that. Now, for the square ones, you get points based on distance, but it's 2 points per section, so it could be up to 6 points you get. So they're worth twice as much individually, but
there's no in-game bonus. Scoring, and that's kind of what happened to me.
Yeah, now there is an in-game bonus for having a complete set of all 5 of the tokens.
Right.
For all 5 set you have, you get 6 bonus points. So that's nice. But here's the kicker. Anybody who doesn't make it all the way back to Greenland, whether it be on the sled or the ship, you lose 2 points per person. So
right.
if, like in my case, my entire crew got stranded on that sled. So I lost 2 points for all my crew members of 7
and
crew.
The boat.
And then you also lose 2 points for the boat if it doesn't make it back. So I lost 16 points at the end of the game because I could not get.
He still won though, so don't feel too bad.
Yeah, because
I mean he murdered everybody, but don't feel
that's right
because he won the game.
But I did find the most evidence of the previous ship, crew. So I think I walked in their footsteps.
Right,
and
he did.
I died in their footsteps too. The other thing is that you have a bonus you get along the way if you build islands. So that's very Carcassonne-like.
Yeah.
So as you're going through, if you complete a whole island itself, you count the number of tiles that make up that island, and you'll get points from 1 to 4 points, depending on the size of that island.
But you cannot get more than 4. That's the most.
Yeah. So I thought that was a neat add-on. So I think we focused a lot on that.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, but that also is one of the ways you get markers. So
that's how you get markers, and that's how you get to and fro. You have to build the islands and the waterway to get to the Northwest Passage.
Yes. So it's a race. It's also got Carcassonne elements. It's got scoring for
and we didn't mention
collection.
But the first person to get to the Northwest Passage gets a victory point bonus. Second person does, then third person. 13, 7, and 3. And
well, it depends on player count. So
okay, but that was a 3-player game. And then likewise, when you get the first person to get back to Greenland, there's a 7 and a 3-pointer.
Yeah.
So there are some bonus points for winning the race.
Yeah. So all in all, I think this is an interesting game. It's frustrating though if you get stranded.
Because here's the thing: Miranda and Randy both got stranded, but Miranda, she was able to build a bunch more islands and score some points. Randy got a bunch of tokens while getting over to the Northwest Passage, so they scored a lot. I didn't score that much, even though I got everything back. I didn't lose anything. I didn't score enough, so I don't think it's that prohibitive to lose people. It wasn't that big of a deal. He scored way more and was able to win the game. So, I mean, you might feel bad for murdering people, but you won the game.
Yeah. Well, I think one of your things is you spent a lot of time building that giant island, and it was only worth 4 points.
Yeah, Miranda didn't help because she added to it. I mean, I wanted it to be a little bit smaller, but she added more land mass.
Well, that's the Carcassonne City building strategy. Just keep flooding the city.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, all in all, I thought it was a neat game. I mean,
yeah, it's definitely a neat game.
It will draw out if you stall out, I should say, if you get in a situation like we got into where you have no mechanism for going back. And it was my own dumb fault because I knew I had to get back to the boat, but then I got sidetracked because I was trying to build islands and try to get tokens that I played. When I should have just moved and got back to the boat and then not worried about doing all that later because I had the free movement at that point. I
think my only complaint is that if you have a hard time, if you have some bad sight, you might have a hard time with the game because it's kind of bland. Mm-hmm. So there's not a whole lot of color differentiation to show different parts of the map, and the white and the blue of the islands and the water is not really that different. So, but in particular your player board, because it's all this monochrome looking, even though the art is really neat, mm-hmm. I like the art, I could see someone having a really hard time if they have vision problems, being able to see what's what on the board. Yeah. So that's my only real complaint. But other than that, I agree. It's definitely a unique game.
Yeah, it definitely is something I don't have in my collection like it.
Yeah, I've not played anything like this either.
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that it is kind of a race game, but it's also got these other side things you can do. So, to me, it's more interesting than a pure race game.
So what did you think overall?
I'm probably right there at a 7, I think, on it. I don't think it's, I don't think there's enough to it to push it higher. I think it would go a little higher if it weren't for the fact that it can stall out like that. But it was my own fault for doing it, and it was very thematic for doing it. So I actually like the fact that it did it. and it makes me want to play it again to not
try and do
do
better.
something stupid
Yeah.
like that. You know,
I agree. I don't think there's a lot of replayability, but there's a little bit. Learn the game, you probably get good at it, and then it might get a little boring after you play it a few times because you know the ins and outs of the game. But other than that, it is definitely interesting, and it's a unique game. And I don't know if I'm going to go out and try and spend $200 for it, but
I don't
if you already
think so.
have it in your collection, or if you can get it relatively cheap, I think it'd be worth looking into getting.
Yeah, I don't know how much Miranda got it for, but I'm hoping it wasn't $200. But yeah, I mean, it's a definitely a unique addition to the collection, so I'm glad I have it.
Right.
And yeah, I think it's fun. I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely something I'll break out from time to time, just because I want to try to get to the end. I think Miranda wanted to play it. She wanted to play it right away.
Right away, just because again she got stuck like Randy, and she wasn't too happy about it.
Yeah. So, well, that's our thoughts on Expedition Northwest Passage.
Have you played it?
Have you tried it? If you have,
let us know.
Let us know. If you haven't heard of it and you want to go check it out, look it up online.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think. So until next time, hopefully you'll have better luck than I do on expeditions.
Bye.
Bye.